Hmm. Let's see. Let's see here. Mm, mm, um, let's see. Is pretty much there. Feeling pretty good. Just give me 1 second. Dun, dun. Boom, boom, boom. YouTube.com. Randy. All right, boom. All right, so that's Facebook. I'm posting this on Twitter now. What's up, Eric Briggs? Skull to your brother. Just posting this on Twitter, and we are good. YouTube.com/realistic Randy. All right, boom. All right, what up, mofos? Let's get this going. So instead of doing a podcast like an official studio podcast, I'll talk to you guys again just to get your thoughts as I talk about this. So NFL playoff scenarios for the Minnesota Vikings, but I wanted to do it a little bit different because I know across like NFL Network, ESPN, bloggers, things like that, we talk about, well, if the Rams win here and if the Saints win and if the Chicago Bears, if they win here or there, this is what it means for the Vikings. So I'm going to do it a little bit different than that. I'm actually going to project what I feel is going to happen these last 3 weeks of the season for all the NFC division contenders and the wild card chasers, and what I feel like those games are going to turn out to be, and then predict the, I guess, playoff scenario for the Vikings depending on what they do these last 3 weeks, if that makes sense. So these next 3 weeks, for all the other teams in the NFC playoff hunt, I'm going to make those predictions, but the Vikings, we're going to see what happens in the event that they win all 3 games, they lose all 3 games, they win a mix of the two. We'll go from there. So let's see. Starting this week, week 15. Okay. So I've got the Eagles beating the Washington Redskins. First of all, the NFC East, bro, it doesn't matter. They're a lock for the number 4 seed. Nothing's going to change about that. That division can be won at 7-9, for God's sakes. But anyway, Eagles, I got them beating the Washington Redskins. I've got Seattle beating Carolina, but I could see Carolina beating Seattle. Seattle was a little bit iffy in their last game against the Rams, but I got Seattle beating Carolina. And then LA, the LA Rams, I have them beating the Cowboys because the NFC East is one of those divisions where they just suck against everybody else, but in their own division, that's where it's competitive. So I'm going to go with the LA Rams because they're not in the NFC East to face the Dallas Cowboys. So they're going to beat the Dallas Cowboys. And I think Chicago is going to upset Green Bay. They've come on a little strong these last 2 weeks. Mitch Trubisky is finally looking good. And Green Bay, yes, they've got 10 wins, but they're a little bit shaky. Barely beat the Washington Redskins. I've got Chicago, even though it's at Lambeau Field, I've got Chicago winning this upcoming week. And then San Francisco, they're going to smash the Atlanta Falcons. And the New Orleans Saints, they're going to beat the Indianapolis Colts. We'll get to Vikings Chargers and then the next couple of weeks after that. So week 16, I've got an upset. Tennessee Titans over the New Orleans Saints. Tennessee is a tough team. They've got a pretty good defense. Don't look now, but Ryan Tannehill may be the next Nick Foles, as in his career just went to hell. All of a sudden, he's looking good again. And Marcus Mariota, he got benched. He's not the quarterback of the future for them. Maybe it's Ryan Tannehill. He looks good for him. So I think the Tennessee Titans, and it's in Nashville, I think the Titans are going to get the upset over New Orleans. I've got San Francisco beating the Rams next week because I know the Rams have come on strong as of late, but the Niners, they're just an absolute juggernaut, dude. Then Dallas over Philly. So NFC East, what's crazy is Dallas and the Philadelphia Eagles, yes, they struggle against everybody else. But when it comes to specifically them two against each other, the Dallas Cowboys are just a better team, even though they both suck outside the NFC East. So I'm going to go with the Dallas Cowboys in week 16 over the Philadelphia Eagles. Also, I've got Seattle over Arizona. I don't think there's anything to dispute about that. And then before we get to Vikings, week 17. Ooh, okay. I've got New Orleans over Carolina. I've got the Philadelphia Eagles over the Giants, but at that point, it won't matter because the Dallas Cowboys, they'll be in the playoffs. They'll win the NFC East because I have them beating the Washington Redskins, Dallas, in week 17. I've got Green Bay beating the Detroit Lions in week 17. I've got the Rams beating the Cardinals, and I've got the Niners finishing strong the rest of the way against the Seattle Seahawks. So, now that we've got those games established, let's look at the Vikings. So first, let me see if any of you guys got a couple of stuff going on. All right, we'll get to some of your questions after this too. Okay, now let's get to the Vikings. So Vikings Chargers preview that will be out tomorrow. So that podcast will be out tomorrow. I think the Vikings will beat the Chargers. Who the hell is Philip Rivers at this point? His career just was completely dead up until last week. All of a sudden, he looked good against the Jacksonville Jaguars. But I've got the Vikings beating the Chargers. I think that's a safe lock, even though we shouldn't overlook the LA Chargers. Week 16. This is where it gets interesting because if they lose to Green Bay, actually, let's take the week 17 one out of it. Okay. So if they lose to Green Bay, and I predicted that this would be the game that the Vikings would win over Green Bay. I thought that it would be a split no matter what. Vikings and Green Bay. I predicted that they would lose at Lambeau Field. I think this will be the game that they win. But let's say it, well, first of all, if they win this game against the Green Bay Packers week 16, and then let's say they win against the Chicago Bears week 17. So let's say they win out. They win their final three games, Chargers, Packers, Bears. They're going to get the third seed. They are going to get the third seed. And the Packers, there's a chance that they could go 1-2 in their last three games because the two tough outs that they have is Chicago and Minnesota. And one could say that the Vikings, they have a chance to go 1-2 in their last three games as well. But if they win out, and assuming that Green Bay, they lose to Chicago, what, this week? Yeah. Let's say they lose to Chicago this week. Then the Vikings get a third seed and they would host the Green Bay Packers in that scenario. Now, let's say if for some odd reason that the Packers luck up and beat the Minnesota Vikings, and let's say the Vikings still go on to win week 17 against the Chicago Bears, then basically it flip flops. So the Packers, they win the NFC North Division. They're the third seed, and they host the Minnesota Vikings. So the Vikings will have to travel, whereas before basically it was flip flop. So the Packers will have to travel to Minnesota if the Vikings win out. Then we get to, so we'll flip flop it back. Packers beating the Vikings in week 16, just as a scenario. And then we get to week 17. Oh, the Chicago Bears, just go ahead and seal it for us, baby. Now, last year it didn't work out so well, even though the Chicago Bears halfway through the game, they benched half their starters. But let's say they lose. Oh, shit. If they lose, so if they win against the Chargers, they lose against Green Bay week 17, and they lose against the Bears, or they lose against the Packers in week 16, and they lose against the Bears in week 17, then the Rams will sneak in. Now let's go to if the Vikings beat the Packers and lose to the Bears. Okay, there's still a 6 seed, so it won't matter. So there's a lot of scenarios right there, and there's a chance that they could still host a playoff game, which is more ideal because going into US Bank Stadium is just treacherous for any opposing team that's going in there. So I guess the main thing that I want to get to is those are the playoff scenarios, but I don't care, okay? Because I had a friend in college, my freshman year, and he told me something that was really interesting. And this was back in my freshman year was 2006, and he was a Giants fan. And I think this was the year we needed the Giants to lose or something like that. I don't remember how the year finished for the Vikings that year, but we needed the Giants to lose or we needed help somewhere else. And a bunch of other teams, they lost the help that we needed, but the Vikings ended up screwing up. And he said to me, he said, I'm going to say Randy, I'm not giving my government name out there, but he said, Randy, listen, man, all that shit about playoff scenarios, needing help, this team to lose, you need this team to win, and all that stuff. None of that stuff means squat if your team can't do the job when necessary. So the point that I'm getting at is you are in control of your own destiny. Win out and you're good. Now, this is a tough 3 games to finish the season, but you control your own destiny. You win like you're supposed to win, then none of the other outside noise matters. So that's really my take from that. Let's get to some of your guys' thoughts on the playoff scenarios before we get into a couple of more topics. Um, Thielen. Okay, a couple of you guys bringing up Thielen. I'm gonna talk about that. Actually, screw it. I'll talk about right now. Adam Thielen. Adam Schefter reported that Adam Thielen is expected to play, barring any setback. But at this point, I'm gonna believe it when I see it because I remember the reports early in the week. Oh, I don't know if he was practicing or something like that, but oh, he's trending in the right direction. And then Mike Zimmer, you know how he does. Oh, he has a great chance to play. Turned out he didn't play at all. And then even if he does play, like Kansas City, is he going to get out there? Is he going to be 100%? Because if not, and he ends up hurting himself again, then that's going to be, it's not necessarily the end of the world if we lose Thielen for the rest of the year, say, as if we were to lose Dalvin Cook for the year. So I think even if Adam Thielen isn't going to play, I think the Vikings still have a chance to win out and still possibly win a championship. But I see the reports. He's expected to play, but I don't know what anything means until I see him in his jersey, in his pads, out there on the field against the Chargers this upcoming Sunday, late afternoon. I don't know. I'm just pretending like Adam Thielen is not going to be there. That was not a fart. That was my phone vibrating, folks. Promise. Let's see. I know there's a lot of fart gate going around with reporters and media members, but we good. Let's see. Skull Nation says, Randy, if the Vikings miss the playoffs and part ways with Zimmer, would you consider a head coach who would change the defense from a 4-3 to a 3-4? Well, if we part ways with Zimmer, in my mind, we're going with an offensive-minded head coach. So my preference will be we keep George Edwards. And even still, I prefer to keep one could say we need to change up our defense because it hasn't been looking great. Granted, Xavier Rhodes has been benched, and they looked well against David Blau, but that's not really saying a lot. Here's the thing. 4-3, 3-4 base defense doesn't really matter because in this day and age of the NFL, the base defense across the entire league is a nickel package. So most of the times, the opposing offenses, they're having 3 wide receivers out instead of 2 wide receivers, a running back, 2 tight ends, or what have you. So I don't think it really matters because 1, we're getting an offensive-minded head coach. 2, nickel package is really the base defense. And 3, preferably we keep George Edwards where we remain a 4-3 defense. But if not, if we go to 3-4, you rush Anthony Barr a little bit more, which, by the way, bro, I've been keeping quiet on Anthony Barr because I said, you know what? All the last couple of years, I've been going off on Anthony Barr and all that other stuff. I'm going to let it ride out because he's making, I know he's making double digits this year, or double digits as far as, what's that, 8 figures? 8 figures this year? Yeah, so he's making 8 figures this year as a linebacker. But as far as what it counts against the cap, I think they morphed it around to where it's mostly a signing bonus for this year. So he's basically $4 or $5 million against the cap. Not sure. I think last time I checked on Spotrac.com. So it's whatever. But next year, that's when it goes into $11 or $12 million against the cap. I need to see Anthony Barr play better, bro. He needs to freaking play better because he started off hot this year, but now he's reverted back to the guy he's just out there on the field. His name gets him more clout, but it is what it is. Now, I guess going back to the point, 3-4, you could put Anthony Barr as a primary edge rusher, outside linebacker. But then if he goes up against offensive linemen, it doesn't matter. But getting back to your question, Skull Nation, 4-3, 3-4 doesn't really matter to me. Let's see. Hugh Mungus says Bears over the Packers, like ? Like in Tim Allen Home Improvement. Huh? Yeah, man. Bears are looking good. They're coming on strong. Mitch Trubisky is finally starting to look good. The offense is clicking, and their defense has just been kind of like the Denver Broncos now and in years past, also with the Minnesota Vikings back in 2016 and to some degree last year in 2018, to where their defense is good, but it doesn't look as good because the offense is, as quickly as they get on the field, they're getting right back off the field. So now that the offense for the Bears is starting to click now the Bears defense can play their way, their style of football as well. They're looking like a dangerous team right now. So yeah, I think especially with the questions on the Packers, both on offense and on defense, because the Packers defense, I love their secondary, man. They got some legit ass cornerbacks, but the pass rush has been in and out. And then the offense has been a little bit inconsistent as well. So we're talking about this time of year, who's getting hot at the right time. The Bears are getting hot. And even though the Packers, they just beat the Washington Redskins, they're 10-3. The Chicago Bears, they look like the much hotter team, even though they have to go to Lambeau. So I would go Chicago over the Green Bay Packers. And goodness, back in the week before that, was that Thanksgiving? Was that Thanksgiving? I swear the Bears played. You know what? This is about to kill me. I'm about to check it right now. I swear the Bears played the Cowboys, right? Let me see. Please hold. Um, Here we go. Boom. ESPN. Blah blah blah. I swear they played the Cowboys. Man, half the time I was drinking some red wine, some Merlot, some Pinot Noir. You know what I'm saying? So I may not remember. They played. Yes. Oh wait, no, they played the Lions. Either way, they played the Cowboys recently. And just beat. Was that last week? God damn. No, that was last week. Okay. So then the week before that, they played the Lions. So forget what I said about Thanksgiving. But anyway, Chicago, they're getting hot at the right time. Let's see. Do. Oh, this is a good one. Dan Pratt says we need to split carries between Cook and Madison. What do you think, Randy? Nah, man, we need Dalvin Cook to be healthy. That was actually going to be one of the points that I was going to bring up, and that's not taking anything. I mean that in the most sincere way possible. I am not trying to take anything away from Alexander Madison, but the way that Dalvin Cook just stretches out offensive possessions time and time again, his footwork is absolutely crazy. I prefer so last week against God, who the hell did we just beat? Oh, Detroit. Last week against Detroit, it was more so of an even split 18 carries for Dalvin Cook, 14 for Alexander Madison. And that worked against the Detroit Lions and David Blau. But I think we need Dalvin Cook. We need the more dangerous running back. I'm not going to say we take them all away from Alexander Madison. I would just say more on a 2-to-1 ratio versus half and half like it was last week. So out of 30 carries, 20 goes to Dalvin Cook, 10 goes to Alexander Madison. Even though Alexander Madison, when he has to come in, he's been great as well. But Dalvin Cook is capable of not only just moving the chains, but he's also at any moment capable, much like Adrian Peterson or Randy Moss, of the home run play. We need that time and time again. Let's see. And then actually, what was the other point that I was going to bring up before we get to your guys' thoughts? Oh, I guess a shout out to Kyle Rudolph, man. So I did this in the last podcast, but apparently he's tied for the most touchdowns in the NFC by a tight end. And suddenly he's Pro Bowl. He might go to the Pro Bowl all of a sudden. I don't know if he will because obviously Kittle's going to go. Who else in the NFC? Greg Olson, he started off good, but not really with a finish, and then he's been kind of hurt. So maybe Kyle Rudolph, maybe he does get to the Pro Bowl, but this man has been playing his ass off. And you know what I really like the most? He wanted to get his contract. He didn't say anything, but he made it very clear that I want a new contract. And he didn't bitch and moan about it. He said, this is what the deal is. Even though he did go out to the media and say, well, maybe I'll go somewhere else, or whatever the case may be. But then when it came to playing early to start the first half of the year, man, he didn't really get much. He got play time, but he didn't get many targets at all. And so now he's getting the targets still, but you haven't noticed a difference in his demeanor. He wasn't bitching and moaning early in the year when he wasn't getting any targets, and now he's getting targets, and he's still the game guy, he's still the same guy. He is the ultimate team player, man. Kyle Rudolph, he's a beast, man. So shout out to him. Troy Bruce, you just said, what do you think of Kyle Rudolph? There you go. Crown Jew says Irv Smith needs to be used more down the field. He is a mismatch for sure. Yeah, man, because right now, Stephon Diggs is the only deep threat that we really have, with Adam Thielen either being out, which I know he's expected to play, but we'll see if he actually does play. Even if he does, is he 100%? Even if he is 100%, do you want to just throw him right into the fire and have him run fly routes all time and time again over the course of a game? I don't know. So for the time being, the only deep threat that we've been using is Stephon Diggs, but certainly Irv Smith Jr. can be used in that same light as well. Um, let's see. We can ignore that phone call. Let's see. RWF 1984 says, "What about Madison? Seems like he be hurdling people's attention about him." I see what you did there. Yeah, that hurdle that he did was pretty good, man. Now, when it comes to football players hurdling, I always hold my breath because you've seen instances where guys come down, they land on their head, they get flipped upside down midair. It's not really a safe thing to do. But Alexander Madison, he cleared his man on that hurdle jump. I mean, Sean T, he would be proud. And all those people, anybody that does the insanity workouts with Sean T knows those power jumps, what I'm talking about. So he'd make Sean T proud on that one. Um, let's see. We'll do a couple more. Um, Michael Miller says, trying to be positive about this Chargers game. Do you think our cornerbacks can cover their weapons? This to me is more than a trap game, must win situation. Oh, hell yeah, bro. Listen, there is no such thing as an easy victory anymore, especially when it comes to the Vikings. I know it's any given Sunday. So that we can throw that out the window because yeah, every game basically is a must win for this situation or for this season for the Vikings to have a chance to go in the playoffs. If you lose to the Chargers, bro, that is going to be catastrophic because now you're talking about assuming that the Chicago Bears assume what's their record? Chicago right now they're 7-6. Okay, so technically they're a winning team right now. So assuming that the Bears beat the Packers, and then you have to you have to play the Packers next week. That's a tough out to finish the season with. The Bears and the Packers after losing to the Chargers. If you lose to the Chargers, bro, that's going to be oh, that's going to be really bad. Um, let's see. We'll do a couple more with you guys. Hell yeah, Devin Jones says, "Bro, we got to win the rest of our games." Hell yeah, we do. And the thing is, we can win the rest of our games. All right, let me do just a quick preview of these three games. Philip Rivers, to sum up the LA Chargers, worry about I get the Bosa's mixed up. Joey Bosa, and they got the other Melvin Ingram, I think is the other pass rush that they have. Is it Melvin Ingram? Yeah, I think it's Melvin Ingram is the other pass rusher that they have. So you need to worry about that. And Philip Rivers is the one thing, whereas if we're having our cornerbacks rotate, where we have Rhodes on the bench for the most part, because I don't care if it's Mike Williams, and especially if it's Keenan Allen, but anybody that they have, it's not a good look. So if you have a good rotation, Philip Rivers, and if we get a good pass rush on him, Everson Griffin and Daniil Hunter, they're playing great. You can fluster the hell out of Philip Rivers really easy. You can count on a couple of delay of game penalties because he does this thing where he's clapping like, come on, snap the ball, and the lineman doesn't get it. I don't know what the deal is. They need to work on their cadence or what have you. You can fluster Philip Rivers so easily, and he'll throw the ball up for grabs for easy interceptions. So you should win that game. Against the Green Bay Packers next week, you're at US Bank Stadium. The Packers, they're a good team, even though they've had their struggles, but you're at your house. You're at US Bank Stadium. They have a strong run game. Now, our defensive tackles, they've been a little bit suspect, especially against that game or against the Seattle Seahawks on Monday night, the week before last. But you can stop Aaron Jones. You give yourselves a chance. Man, they got some nice receivers. They got a good secondary. But I think just because of the home factor, our offense is clicking on all cylinders. I think we'll be fine. Harrison Smith, he's had a good last couple of games, I would say. So if the cornerbacks struggle a little bit, then Harrison Smith can help out over the top. So you should be able to beat the Packers. If nothing else, you are at home where you've always had the upper hand against them. And then when it comes to the Chicago Bears, that God, that's going to be the funny one because mobile quarterbacks, gadget offense, Allen Robinson, he's always been one of the, I would say, 25, 30 best receivers in the NFL, but now he's getting utilized like one because Mitch Trubisky is making quality throws now. So that's going to be the tough one. Their defense is really good. I think all things being equal, that would be the truest test of them all. I feel a lot more confident that the Vikings can beat the Chargers and that they can beat the Packers. When it comes to the Bears, I think they should be able to squeak that out too, even though I don't want to be a hypocrite. But you know what? Times change. New information comes out. So before this season started, I predicted that the Vikings would get swept by the Bears because I thought the Bears would win the division. I thought they would repeat as NFC North Division champions. That obviously is changing. It's either going to be the Vikings or the Packers, but still, new information comes out, new things happen. I think the Vikings should be able to squeak out a win against this year's Chicago Bears, but that would be the toughest test of them all, even though it's at US Bank Stadium. So, yeah, win and you're in. Just win, right? Al Davis, just win, baby. Screw the rest of the playoff scenarios. If this team wins, I want it to be this is your opportunity. I don't want to be all cliche-ish and give a pep talk like Al Pacino in what was that movie? Any Given Sunday? I think that was the movie it was. The game is won by inches. 1 inch, you're not there, you can't quite make it. All that stuff. But no, in all seriousness, this is your time to shine. We have seen so many examples in the Vikings history where, man, just win and you're in. You control your own destiny, but they usually fall apart. Maybe this is a new year. Maybe this is a new era under Mike Zimmer. It's going to be tough. These rest of these 3 games, yes, they're all going to be tough, but get it done, man. You're a good team. You're supposed to be a great team. You've got one of the most talented rosters in the NFL. Go get it done, man. Let's see. Shirley Serious. Another thing, yes, their offense outside of Phillip Rivers, Eckler, Melvin Gordon. Yeah, they got a pretty good set of offensive weapons to work with. We'll do a couple more. Bob Money says stop. LOL. He says you will beat the Chargers. I hope so, man. I hope so. Let's see. Um, Minnesota Viking Mike says win and you're in is not that easy. Ask the 2003 Vikings. Yeah, I know that. I was a fan. I watched that. Well, goodness, that was one of the McCown brothers 40-yard Hail Mary-ish play to end the game. If the Vikings won, they would have made the playoffs. I know it, but it's a new year. Be positive, man. Why y'all so negative out there? I'm just kidding. Um, the Colt 45 show says, why did the Chargers Vikings get changed from Sunday night to Sunday afternoon? Because the Chargers suck. That's why. The only reason that you would watch Sunday night Vikings Chargers is because of the Vikings, which I get, and it does have playoff implications. But the opponent that they're going against, the Chargers aren't going to the playoffs. They have nothing to play for. So what will draw more eyes? Let's see. Who actually got flexed in for the Vikings Chargers slot on Sunday Night Football this week? I think is it the Bills? No. Yes, it's the Bills and the Pittsburgh Steelers. So that because of ratings, business, that's going to draw a lot more viewers watching the TV. That's the reason why it's there. Whereas you have the Chargers who aren't playing for anything at all. And by the way, the LA Chargers, just quick rant here. I lived in San Diego. It was so stupid that they moved to LA. Just a quick rant. No one in LA cares about the Chargers. No one. You know who LA cares about? They care about the Rams and the Raiders. That's it. They don't care about the Chargers. So they have nothing to play for. The people in LA don't even care about them. There's no reason why they should be on primetime football. Let's see. Shirley Serious says Josh McCown. That was Josh McCown, the Josh McCown, like right now, backup quarterback for the Eagles. Josh McCown, who damn near led the Chicago Bears. Actually, not even damn near. I think they went to the playoffs a couple of years ago when Jay Cutler went out. That Josh McCown? It wasn't Luke McCown? There's so many damn McCowns out there. I can't even keep up. Wow. That's nuts. All right. We'll do one more. Let's see. Da 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 da. Um, Minnesota Viking Mike says, "Yeah, I think this will be the last one." Minnesota Viking Mike says, "Hopefully our offense don't look so conservative this week." I don't know, man. I think maybe you're going up against the Lions, so to a degree, it's almost like you're playing down to your opponent, but you're also thinking about the opponents that you have to finish the rest of the season, and you don't want to necessarily give anything away, even though at this point we're 13 games in. I think opposing teams, they have a pretty good idea of what you're about as a team on offense and on defense. So I think against the Chargers, I would hope the Vikings understand what's at stake here, because this is the lesser difficult or the least difficult of your three remaining games. So you need to get this in, because if the Rams win, the Rams are going up against who the hell are they going up against? They're going up against they're going up against the Dallas Cowboys, which I do expect them to win. So if you lose to the Chargers and the Rams beat the Dallas Cowboys, then that's more advantage for the LA Rams. So hopefully they understand the sense of urgency that the Vikings should have for your three remaining games, especially up against the Chargers. So that'll be it for us, guys. This live stream was pretty cool. I know I do this kind of sporadically, maybe once every other week or something like that. Definitely going to do it a lot more. Tomorrow's podcast will actually preview legit. I'll go in depth Vikings versus Chargers, what to expect in that game. Check me out Twitter at realistic_Randy, Facebook at realistic Randy. This was a lot of fun, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day. We'll see you tomorrow.